Hi friends, thank you for coming back and joining me again. Today, I'm going to tell you about the first time I fell in love. Okay, so that sounded a little bit like very reality TV of today. So maybe I should qualify this. How about the day that I found my why? We moved permanently to the United States when I was 7. I had completely lost any sense of identity that I had at that time, or anything that I could cleave onto as beautiful. When I was in elementary school, I had the most incredible elementary school teacher. Her name was Gail Ryan. I'll never forget her. I became completely involved and enthralled with music because in this elementary school music program, we would put together these productions of musicals. We performed The King and I. We performed Can Can. We had a recorder choir. We had a guitar choir. I learned to play ukulele. She always looked at me like I was talented. I looked at myself like I was rotten. It was also the time of the Mariel boat lifts and a large migration of Cuban immigrants into Miami. We lived in Miami Shores. And I remember distinctly one day I was walking to Biscayne Park with my brother. And it was a white suburban area, upper middle class neighborhood, very quiet, very beautiful. We were walking down the street to go to the park and play. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we see rocks flying through the sky. And I look behind us, and there are these boys, and they were throwing rocks at us, and they were yelling at us, "Go home, refugee, go home." And I was like, he's trying to kill us. And so we started running. I was so sad. I had never been chased like that, much less had someone trying to inflict harm upon me. And I remember going home and asking my grandmother, "What's a refugee?" It didn't matter that I had gone to private American schools in the Dominican Republic and that I was bilingual. It didn't matter that I went to preschool in New York, where we were served lunch in silver chafing dishes. All of a sudden, I was someone who didn't belong and someone who was vilified for existing. So one day, I was called into the office and I was told that I had made the citizenship honor roll. And then they told me that we were being given 4 tickets to the Florida Symphony Orchestra concert. I'd never been to a symphony concert. I'd never really heard a symphony orchestra perform. I knew merengue bands, I knew jazz. So I thought this could be really cool because it was something completely foreign to anything that I knew, anything my family knew or embraced. So I was like, cool. This means I'm like introducing something new to our family because I behaved. My brother, myself, my grandmother, and my mother all went to this Florida Symphony Orchestra concert. I remember stepping into the Gusman Theater for the Performing Arts, looking up, and the ceiling in the theater was like a nighttime sky, and it had twinkling lights, a contrast in clouds. Like I could smell the wood in the theater, and it was so comforting as I sat in the red velvet chair. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the brass section of the orchestra starts coming down the aisles playing this fanfare. It was incredible. It was earth-moving. It was soul-searing. It was unbelievable. I had never felt anything like that in my life. I want to do that. So now fast forward a couple of years, and it's instrument selection night at junior high. I swore I was going to play oboe because it was so cool. There's instruments laid out in front of the band, and they start talking about each instrument group, and my mother goes and signs up. And then she gives me my case. It was the cheapest instrument there because she couldn't afford anything else. And when I opened the case, it wasn't one of those nice shiny black plastic cases that everybody else had. Mine was wood and it was brown. And when you open the case, the inside was like orange shag. Think Scooby-Doo. Yeah. But my mother said, "You're playing trumpet, and one day you're going to play just like Chuck Mangione." So several weeks later, she took me to a Chuck Mangione concert. I left there blown away that anybody could be so extraordinarily talented and competent, but also utterly convinced that there was no way that I was going to be that cool. So then I have a conversation with my dad, who's living in Dominican Republic with his new family. And he says, "Oh, I heard you're playing trumpet." And I said, yeah. And he said, "Maybe you can be one of those girls in the merengue bands." Yeah, Dad. I'm a fermented piece of fruit. Rotten. And I have no hope of ever being that hot. So, no, Dad. But I went ahead and I worked really hard. I did the best I could with what I had. One day, my high school band director pulls me into his office and says, "Look, you're really not much of a trumpet player. And your instrument is just like really terrible. And your family can't afford to buy you a new one." Because at that point I was being solely raised by my grandmother and my great-grandmother. "I want you to take this home and teach yourself to play it. Here's a book." And he gave me a horn. And I remember taking that horn home, and I remember opening that case, and it was like that case came from Dracula's crypt. Yeah. When I opened it, it went, and it smelled like I swore I was going to see bats flying out of that thing. And so the first thing I did was throw the horn in a bath of hot water and Lysol. Don't do this at home, kids. Don't ever do that. But I was like, that thing smells like it came from a sarcophagus. I just can't. And so, yeah, it soaked for a couple of days. And then I proceeded to teach myself to play over the summer. One of the things that I loved was the fact that the instrument was no longer pointing to the front. It wasn't a look at me instrument, so I could literally sit within the band and hide. I was competent enough. I got into college on horn, not because of extreme efforts on my part, but because of luck. And I had my first private lesson when I started college. My learning curve was incredibly steep, obviously. I'd been playing horn for a year, and I was like, okay. And I worked really, really hard. One day, my teacher came to me and said, "Listen, I need you to just go sit for me at this thing. You get paid X amount of dollars," which was in 1990. That was money. That was a lot of money. And I was like, So I just have to sit. Like, I don't have to play. I don't have to, like, just sit. He said, yes. And he told me that because he knew that if he told me that I needed to sight read anything, I wouldn't go. If he told me that I had to play with adults, I probably wouldn't go. I got there to learn that it was the South Florida press release at the brand new Broward Center for the Performing Arts of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. My teacher was actually playing principal horn. There was no way that I could not play. And so I sight read the book. I did it well enough that the orchestra survived despite me. And I remember going into the car, I sobbed. Because again, I was reminded of what it felt like to exist within the realm of sound. And it was extraordinary. It was powerful. It was safe. It was filled with incredible possibilities that had nothing to do with this girl that didn't particularly want to be seen, but that relished every moment of existing within that realm and seeing herself as her most beautiful self, as her most complete self, as her most capable self, as her strongest self that could do anything. In those 2 times, I knew that I was utterly loved, that I was utterly safe, that my world of possibilities was without limits, and nothing that anybody could say to me to put me in a box, to put a label on me, to diminish me, none of that mattered, because words didn't matter. Sound did. And that's why I fell in love with making music. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. And thank you for being willing to take this journey with me as we all redefine what it means to be a music educator today, as we explore the extension of our realm of possibilities in order to make it an infinite one. These are challenging times, but that doesn't mean that there's not a place for us of powerful importance in the lives of the students that we teach. I look forward to seeing you again soon.